Obviously, hate that. Hate that. It's always terrible. It's always
Yeah.
so. Here we are with Charles. That do you just go by Charles? Charles is fine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if people know me, in the past few years, some folks call me Solo, but I that's it's a little strange. It's kind
Yeah,
of it's supposed to be on the nose, because of the isolation of just creating art in general, you know.
I do. I do. I just have a. It's weird because being in contact with people a lot on Twitter, but I don't use my name. It's I just use Gutter Bumpkin. So I always have people yelling at me, Gutter Bumpkin, and it's like, tell Gutter Bumpkin this, and I'm just like, well, yeah, I guess that's as good as anything. I reckon I'm not going to correct you
Yeah.
for this. So yeah, man. Last time we got together, it was at Art Share. We talked about kind of just uh, when we had met you up in Brookwood and stuff. And man, I'm really interested in finding out more about how you came about learning and like where you were with it and like just what you're doing and like I guess just because you put out a lot of work, man. You put out
Right.
an amazing amount of work, actually. And it's all very good. Me and Andrea, my partner, is we've watched several videos, and on top of being, I love your style, and I want to get into that, but like also with your music, it is like probably one of the most relaxing. I've got to honestly like it's just really cool. It's the vibe is really well, and to put out the message is it's not so abrasive, but it's certainly obvious.
Right.
But the tone, I don't know how did that all come about?
Uh, I I think the general aesthetic is like trying to help people understand their own isolation, atomization, and alienation through our current like vertical relationship with capital. So I'm always trying to think of ways to like break that softly for people, like try to give context without exhausting them anymore, you know?
Yes, because I have also that's really awesome, man. Because I have found that like with with the idea of well, whether it be a communist or anarchy or just anti-capitalist, it's so wordy, it's so intense, it's
Right.
so massive. It's hard to find any type of. You either feel like you're an idiot and you're just shoved away from it.
Or you're in another vertical relationship with somebody.
Yes.
Right. Where they're like trying to dictate to you like the value of things, the value of words, the value of concepts, and like there's no creativity or curiosity to it, which to
Yeah.
me, creativity is problem solving, you know?
Hmm.
It's like, that's why poor people are very creative because you figure out how to do a lot with nothing
Yeah. Yeah.
and you figure out how to do it over and over and over again.
Yes. Yeah. And make it better and to use it and be versatile with it.
Right.
Certainly I know throughout growing up, if you're anything like me, there's seasonal changes. Like in the winter, it's moving kerosene heaters around.
Yeah.
There's this whole short of that. And in the summer, it's box fans and windows and bugs and shit. And like, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
And there's ways to acclimate your environment to the, you know, I guess, yeah, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just like you're stuck in a spot, so you have to do something. And the creativity comes in where you're just like, well, this is what it is. I think that's why poor people, I guess I'm always kind of like trying to get more poor people to create art because we don't get a chance to really play with the symbols that are assigned to our life and the lexicon, the words that are used about us and stuff. And mostly because we work all the damn time, and but we're also creative. Like some of the funniest people I've ever known were like my great aunts, who were just poor their whole life and had no friends at all. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
they went to work their whole lives and came home and were just pissed off all the time. It's super funny,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I do know. I do know. Another thing also with where did because being an artist is an art in itself, and it's like it's almost like you feel everyone feels like, well, I'm either not an artist, or I don't have the tools, or you don't have the like money to put into whatever the things or the
Right.
education. Where did you learn?
Uh, well, I started out as a visual artist when I was a teenager, but I was homeless for a while, so I just couldn't do it anymore.
In
Like,
Alabama?
yeah, yeah, and yeah, you can't carry around a notebook when it's raining
No
or when you're
shit.
sleeping in the park, or
Hmm.
uh, you can't really have personal belongings. So around that time, I like focused more on music, and I kept my guitar at a friend's house, and through music, I learned how to do a lot of design work just because we couldn't afford to pay other people, and I kind of already knew how to do it. And it was around the same time that pirating became a big thing.
Yeah.
You know, like pretty much if you had a computer, you could torrent, whatever.
Right.
Mid 2000s, like people using the technology hadn't caught up with the people that were what's the word? Technology was just moving too fast, and the users were moving faster than the people who were trying to capitalize on it. It was a time where you could like get stuff pretty easily if you knew how to use a computer. And I would always go to a friend's house and use his computer, and because I didn't have one, or I'd go to the library, use that, and I guess it wasn't because of access. It was just because of like proving that I could do it all the time. Wanting to prove, I guess, wanting to learn. If I ever had any time off,
Yeah.
it wasn't time off. It was always pushing towards that, and it didn't matter how many hours that I worked at my day jobs or how tired I was. I always tried to do some part of it because that was like the only part of my life where it was like I'm a human right now, learning,
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. I missed that whole era. I was in prison, and I missed that entire like torrent down, like all that entire, but I hear magnificent things about that time and about people especially in the well, just in the creative scene, being able to really help themselves. I found like I'm interested in. I've got a lot of stuff off YouTube I learned, but there's always so many weird learning curves. And there's also the weird thing about
Oh,
art.
technology is really tough now.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
I work on it all the time, and it's just it's a lot to learn every year.
yeah, it changes, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
and it's like, I mean, like, fuck, dude. Like, how in the fuck does anybody like? I don't know. And then it's so weird because, and I know and especially for people, and that's one of the reasons why we created the art share and stuff was for people who may not uh have like because I know people just get so uh this feeling of like, well, you carry being poor anyways. You're taught that you're just off the jump not good enough, and all your shit's
Right.
not good enough, and it's not going to be what's on whatever, who's getting
Right.
praise.
And at the same time, the only thing you own is your pride.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like set up for like some kind of, you're just set up for failure. You're either
Yeah, man.
filled with like reactionary, feelings, or you're filled with sycophant feelings about the structure that just destroys you.
Yeah, yeah, it does, man. I mean, one thing that they are good at, man, is like making you feel sick. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? To say she's a cure. Dude,
Yeah.
they've got that shit, man. They got that shit down.
Yeah, it's like the what really makes a lot of people sick is like having to live in certain material conditions and then deny them for the culture or whatever, for the, you know, the collective conscious or whatever of the culture. It's like you live in these like deteriorating material conditions. Every day you own less and you pay for more, and you give more and you work more and you just get less. And
Yeah.
you're supposed to be like, no, this is fine. This is cool.
Yeah.
Or you get wrapped up in the punitive system or something, you know? And yeah, you don't want to do that.
Take it down.
Because then forever your opinion doesn't matter at all in this system or whatever. I feel like that's one thing that we've gotten more conservative about, is that like past the rehabilitation and like what that means in liberal culture, like who can talk about what, and you know, that type of shit. It seems like things are more conservative in that way, that like there's no path to rehabilitation. There's just like purity politics, because the only thing we own is culture, so we have to police that, you know?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense, because I find myself in this weird state of I believe very much in mutual aid, and when I say that, I mean that in a way that, like, you know, as much as I could say that I have judgment towards everyone. Now, obviously, like, the, you know, this whole fascist Nazi uprising thing is like very much you know, one thing, but I definitely see the danger in the, you know, the reaction to that. You know what I'm saying? I feel like one way or another we're heading for crazy police state and fucking Jesus Christ, you know, all that, man, because there's no there's people. It's like this when you get into and I hate to bring these people up, but when you get into a conversation about Trump or Biden, it's like, well, at this point in time, I don't give a fuck what Trump did, you know what I'm saying, or anything like. And really, honestly, you can't tell me that this motherfucker is good. So why aren't we holding this motherfucker accountable? Why aren't we fucking after his fucking head? Oh, because we don't want to fucking like what? Like, oh, so we're just gonna give back and give in and like
and they're carrying out the same policies anyway. Like for the most part. So like it's really just about etiquette, and it's always about etiquette over equity, because we can't really change this like extractive culture that we have, like capitalism internalized in our personal relationships and in our politics and in everything, you know, like it's all the same shit. And people want the show to be different. So it's like fandom. So it's like, well, these are the blue guys and these are the red guys, and they believe this and they believe that, but it's really this two hands of capital.
That's man. I mean, I feel
over and over again with
every group, with everybody. You know, it's like, this is the Taliban. This is like whatever companies fucking they represent. This is you know, whoever. This is the companies that, you know, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And the scare tactics and money and fucking. And what is America other than just like the fucking world's consumer? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so weird to be in this state where it's like, holy shit, man. You know, if we're
like the global PMC. We're like the professional managerial class. We're the ones who overlook capitalism and say who gets extracted, who gets destabilized, who gets dispossessed, and we do it because it's better for the world somehow.
You know? Yeah, and it's obviously not.
No. No, it just it commodifies like every portion of our humanity and every externality to life itself, you know, until like everything's accounted for and categorized and put on the market. And then sold back.
Yeah, man. You are sold to yourself. Like, you're buying. Like, it's so fucking weird. I tell you, man, about being in prison and you know, where you're a part of this organism and like, you know, I was very, very young, and I did a whole lot of time, did like 9.5 years. And fucking when I that's like, I had no identity really other than what was inside my mind. You know, you're wearing a uniform every fucking day for 10 years. You're fucking
Right.
walking in a line for 10 years. You are a number. You are the, just a fucking warehouse of souls that are fucking numbered and filed. And it's just exactly how, you know what I'm saying? These loss of variables of the fucking world. Anyway, so like it was so strange to come out of that and see and have to find my place in this
Right.
thing out here, especially like, I was very, very
Because
young.
it's all a stage show.
It is, man.
It's all about etiquette.
Yeah, man.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. So many gatekeepers, so finding
everybody wants to build their own personal lexicon where they get to control the value of everything, where they get to like, and then they want obedient people to like, participate, but only obedient people.
Yeah.
And it's because they've internalized this the structure or whatever, I guess. That extractive structure. Everybody wants to be the boss man, but they find ways to absolve the guilt of being the boss man, through etiquette.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
It's weird. It's like the neoliberal head fog thing. Like nothing can be what it is. There has to be like some kind of thing in front of it.
Right.
Storefront.
Right. There has to be sorry about that. My phone's fucking dumb. Yeah, man, it's a terrible thing, a situation to have any type of identity that isn't like. I feel sorry for like, because like I remember before I went in, there was this whole, punk and all this stuff, and it hadn't really, all DIY shit, and like everybody was like, into this whole this thing where, and then next thing fucking, it's like, oh no, there's no more of that. That doesn't exist. All the entire culture is already produced, manufactured, and sold. There's nothing really original anymore. And
right.
So
everything's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, and nothing's based on real synthesis through living through craft and creating through process. People just like, they see something in the market, they identify with it, and then they, try to LARP,
Absolutely.
LARPing. It's a real thing.
It really
especially
is.
Online.
Mm-hmm.
Like people talking about whether they're communist or this, that, and the other. It's like, you're not really any of those things.
I know. It's weird.
But I mean, it's like love and solidarity with everybody. But like, to me, it's another neoliberal thing where it's a stage show. It's about like presenting and posturing and making sure that I don't know.
Or you have a label, you are defined, you have this, these are your people, you are tribed up, you are like, this is your ideals. There is no, no give or take, and fucking, it is weird. It is weird.
My argument towards it is that, all these words that we use are still a part of this like liberal project, which is based on like extraction and destabilization and mind games and hoodoo magic and deep magic that like dispossesses you, of your own intent in the wheel.
I do.
It's strange. But if you talk about it, people just people think you're strange or pretentious, or so that's going back to all the art stuff. I mean, like you have to constantly find soft ways to make people understand that they're playing with symbols and abstractions, but they materialize them on the material plane by like taking all this stuff really seriously, and living by these weird I don't know what you would call them, behavioral patterns or something.
Yeah, man, it's some sort of there is definitely something to it. And I found myself in situations as an artist who is in this like weird in-between world of like trying my hardest to do things like the way that makes that I feel like I should do, like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I just really honestly want to create art and help people and make people feel better about themselves and help people learn that, even if you are poor, I think that this is the one of my main things is like, hey, look, have self-esteem, get out there, work, you are, and what you have to say is important, and you don't have to listen to all this right here. What is
Right.
popular isn't necessarily good. You know what I'm saying? And
And
when
also you're qualified to talk about your experiences,
yes,
no matter what
yes.
your experiences are. And like I mean, we're all human. And you should solidarity goes towards everybody. It should, for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. No, I feel like there is definitely like a point that, and I don't know about like I was with that word of solidarity. I find it getting used in ways, and I hate things like that, man. Where it's like, well, yeah, I'm saying these are the things that I believe in too, but like I feel like I don't know, man. When I start saying things like I don't know, man. I don't know. I just want to think for myself, and I want to experience my life and
Right.
have my experience, and like not necessarily. I mean, yeah, man. We're all part of the same team. I feel like as far as like we need progress, we need to start, you know, moving forward, and if we're not going to be able to evolve or like get anywhere if we don't at some point take action in our
Right.
own lives to be our own selves. And I think one of the things that keeps us from doing that, like you said, is these product placements, this fucking crazy shame that you're born with when
Right.
you're poor, or if you're, anger is another thing that I dealt with for so many years that just poisoned me.
Oh
Fucking
God, yeah.
poisoned me, poisoned everything that I did, poisoned art, poisoned everything. And it was like,
It was a
not,
fuel for a long time, and then it turned into poison.
mm-hmm,
The rage, or
mm-hmm.
whatever. The rage of just experiencing all this shit all the time. And people just looking you right now and being like, nah, it ain't that. And it's like, nah, it is this. It's always been this. Every person I've ever fucking known, it's been this. Like, you're trying to tell me it ain't this, you know?
How the fuck ain't
And
it this? It is totally
yeah,
that. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, the reason I'm so firmly rooted in, I guess the material plane is I grew up poor. My father's been in prison my whole life. So I grew up visiting my father in prison and knowing murderers, and my father is a convicted murderer. Um, Knowing them and knowing that they have humanity, even though they've done awful things, and like that's not me. I mean, that's my father. I you can't undo that, you
No,
know.
yeah, I hear you. No, I hear
As
you.
much um but the reality of the situation, which is like, oh yeah, there's still people and they're messed up in the head, and my father is not always all there, because he's been in prison for 30 years.
Sure.
But when sometimes he's there. So it's like I can only imagine like sitting in a prison cell the whole time. And then having this whole world go on, and like no one can admit that you're there or what's happening, or and then having all these little pockets throughout society where that's just the case, where it's like, yeah, there's humans there, but they don't exist. And going back to some of my work, that's the last record I put out, Material Ghosts and a Spiritual Illusion. That's what that whole idea is that being born into a certain class, you're not sure if you're real because you don't see yourself in the market, and you don't see your misery or anything being addressed, I guess. It's like you have all these things that's like, if you have erectile dysfunction, there's something for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have zits,
Mm-hmm.
we got something on the market for that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're balding, we got something for that.
Mm-hmm.
And we got all these things, but like we have adversarial policy issues by a superstructure that just destroys us mentally and physically, and generational patterns too.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, it's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. How old were you when your father got locked up?
Uh, he he's been locked up since before I was born. Like he kept going back. Uh, he's institutionalized, I guess. You know.
Well, I mean, buddy, I don't know about what institutional. I tell you about that phrase. Like I understand
Right.
what it means and I get it, but
Yeah.
man, fucking dude, man, dude,
I don't know what other word you would.
right.
He feels he hates the cage, but it's all he knows.
Yeah, man, and it's all they'll give him.
And the social structure inside there, you know,
Yeah,
and the amount of violence it takes to survive for that long, you know.
yeah, man.
uh it breaks down a lot of your like idea of human value, you know. And especially if you don't really, if your own quality of life is so low, like what is the removal of choice by force if your whole life is shit?
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, how else am I going to get that? What, I mean, what, are you a fucking child? Like,
Yeah.
a bunch of grown men, everybody in here, like, you know, nobody wants to be here.
Right.
Nobody's got shit, you know.
Right. Yeah, man.
Except pride, except, you know, their own personal illusions of control and the violence it takes to build those type of things in social situations.
Yeah, man.
I don't know what you would call it.
I don't either. There's no words for it because nobody's fucking getting in there and fucking doing anything. I mean, I don't know. We've talked to people in the Vera Project, and I've talked to many abolitionists, and obviously, man, I am a huge abolitionist. I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know,
no part of it works.
No, none of it.
It's expensive, and no part of it works. And yeah. It's remedial, it's brutal, it's medieval.
Yeah, man. That is barbaric. It's absolutely barbaric, the entire fucking system. And to think about what they do to like grown men, and they do that to young kids. Like when I got locked up, I was a juvenile. They sent my fucking straight ass first charge, you know what I'm saying, was an armed robbery charge. Fucking sent my fucking punk ass straight to goddamn to an adult prison, you know what I'm saying? For like, dude, like, you know.
My father's first charge was he bought a car from somebody and they didn't give him the title and they reported it stolen the next day.
Jesus fucking Christ, man.
And this was like in 85.
Jesus,
that was his first charge.
Christ.
He was 17. He went to jail over it because they came and took the car, and then he was supposed to go to court over it, but just out of pure spite, he went and re-stole the car. Or he didn't steal it the first time, but he was so pissed off, he like went over to the dude's house, busted out the window, and drove away with it, I guess.
Well, man, goddamn hard to blame him, man. You know what I mean?
No, when he told me that story, because my granny used to tell me that he wanted to be a preacher when he was 14. I'm like, what the fuck? Like he's one of those. He's the type of dude who carries when he's out, which was seldom, but he used to carry a gun in each boot. And he's nice to me because I was his son, but you know, very angry, obvious angry man. But he used to want to be a preacher, and then like slowly stuff just kept happening, and he felt rage, and he kept responding with the rage, and it just kept getting worse and worse.
There is a point where that's about the only way to have control over and even if you are in prison or whatever, like you were saying, you know, violence is like one of those things where it's like, hey, you're not going to fuck with me anymore, or we're all going to die. Or, you know what I'm saying? Either that, or, you know what I'm saying?
I used to have that. Like, it's a family. It's almost like a family thing where it's like, I'll burn down this whole fucking house. I don't care. Like, it's like, why do you say that? Why does it have to go there? But like, there's a part of your, you know, that like when you don't have any control at all or whatever. Like, I think that's where it stems from.
And where is the value in all of this? If I am feeling this way and these things are happening, and where am I going if I'm stuck? Fuck it. You know, I'm gonna take it all out. Yeah, man. I grew up in an extremely violent household, man. As a matter of fact, yeah, my brother's been, plenty. I've been in prison. My brother, you know how it goes. And yeah, man,
Yeah,
it's
all my uncles were in prison,
yeah,
so yeah, it was like a family thing.
yeah, man. Yeah, I think it's I think overall it is a because I mean almost every single son bitch that I know that I grew up that was in my that I grew up with that was in like down in the hollers and shit and fucking what have you
Right.
all everybody's been to prison. If they didn't go to prison, they went to fucking they joined the army and then they came out and went to prison. You know what I'm saying? Fucking,
Yeah,
it's like fucking crazy, man.
yeah, it's the same shit, or it feels like the same shit. I don't know, like the army thing or the prison thing. It's like, what do you do with your rage? Do you are you reactionary or are you sycophant?
Right.
Do you find a way to climb up the pant leg of capital, or do you piss on the pant leg of capital and or hurt yourself, or like destructive patterns? Like that's another thing when I mean, just when you feel devalued all the time, you really eventually don't value your own life anymore. And once you get to that point, like you do anything to express your rage, or whatever it is.
To stop feeling it.
Yeah, yeah, and especially if that's the only way anyone. I thought about this sometimes. Like the whole family would have to get together and go visit my father, and it was like a special day dedicated to my father every other weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
Like the whole family got together and visited him, and we drove how many ever hours away to visit him, and it was a whole day dedicated to him. And it seemed like it was like a family event, and then that normalized like a part that was like the only time we did any kind of family event. It was just kind of.
That's beautiful to me.
It is. I mean, it is, but it's sad. It's just like, if that's the only time that your family gets together is to kind of work through this immovable situation, like there's no solution to it. You go there and you're like, hey, you're still human. It's okay. We miss you. We love you. And then you leave. You come back 2 weeks later. There's always just, I guess that's why it's so easy for me to constantly create stuff. It's like I grew up on the material plane where all this shit happens all the time. It's very normal. And I remember talking to my like middle class white friends and shit. They don't like when I talk about like my family stuff, they're just like, that's so crazy. That's insane. What the hell are you talking about? You just said that so nonchalant. It's like, bro, this is how people live.
Yeah,
Think
man.
people don't live this way.
Yeah, a lot of fucking people, dog. A lot of motherfuckers, dog.
Yes.
A lot of people. They might not
Yeah.
be in their neighborhood, but I guarantee, like right here in Chickamauga, man, there's some train tracks that go run through this motherfucker, and it is seriously just like one side of it has no idea how the other side lives, dog. They ain't got no fucking idea, and how the two mix is it's bizarre, dog. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, well, anyway, so do you have any sort of spirituality, or are you
No, I don't think so. I will maybe. My thing about it is that humanity stays the same, technology changes, and the same thing with lexicon and the symbols that we use to express ourselves. So I think I don't know if we just use other people's symbols to express things that we experience, and like spirituality or what I feel and experience that maybe would align with that is not anything that I could express with
words?
Certainty.
Yeah,
Certainty
right.
words.
Yeah.
Like that's another thing that's kind of annoying about it, is like people who are super certain about that thing. It's like to me it reeks of fear,
Yeah.
And more brave thing to do is be like, I don't know, some days I feel nothing, and some days I feel everything, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is, and it's in all the words and all the stories that we have, it doesn't really cover it, you know, like
Mhm.
consciousness in general. uh but I guess that's why I'm trying to build new lexicons all the time, you know, something that's, because all the stuff we have is dirty, like all the
Yeah.
words and all the stories,
Yeah.
and everything's been
Yeah.
co-opted, everything's been sold back to us like
Yeah.
multiple times over and over and over again. And it's hard for us to see the patterns because our comprehension skills are not great because we're exhausted, you know, like we're exhausted from competing and performance and the social performance inside the competition.
Yeah.
There's layers to it, you know, and all of it's, you know, it's like working out your false consciousness and LARPing and uh, keeping up with people and keeping up with their illusions and making sure that the illusions are parallel
Yeah.
and that they're moving in the right direction, so that way that you can, you know, be human,
Yeah.
supposedly.
Validate your humanity.
Right? Yeah, to
Yeah.
other people. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so as Solo Monk, this you are saying that this is my world that I've or how is because I know that's what you're saying, like to hit the my
Yeah.
own church, the church of self. I love all that
All right.
shit. I'm very much into that.
I think a lot of I use a lot of misnomers, kind of the same way politics goes. You
Mhm.
know, like right to work state. It means I can fire you whenever the fuck I want.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Church itself is the same thing, where like, you know, capitalism says your individual desires is how you express your freedom. Uh, but to me, how you express your freedom is by, you know, um, making material conditions better, you know, and what it takes to do that is different than, you know, chasing your desires at all times, especially when you don't even own your own desires. You know, they're implanted inside of you, and based on fear that is also reasserted over and over again by the market. uh
And dependent upon the market to allow you to engage in this and to have whatever it is that you're wanting, like without them, you know what I'm saying? It's a fucking
there's some I'm not even gonna say what it is or whatever, but I'm just gonna do my countryism or whatever. Desire is one of those things that every time you grab it, it's gone. And then it starts over again. And we don't realize that because we're built on this pleasure principle to constantly buy and constantly uh, identify through commodities, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I think me and you talked about this before last time where we're what was it where you're like chasing happiness and it's like what's the difference? Is it buying is it buying happiness? Are you buying an item or are you buying an experience? And where does your money go? And like
Right.
what is valuable to you in your experience?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like for me, and when I get into, and I know you do a lot of mutual aid. I know you do. Of course, you worked for Strike Fest, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm sure you get into some other stuff that you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
The problem is in Alabama is that if you help out with something or there's a nonprofit going, it usually collapses after a year. So it's like I could name off some things, but most of them, the people moved away, or you know, bad things happened and it just fell apart or something. It's really tough in Alabama. People just don't.
Well, it's tough all over the South because
Well, yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
no way to get involved in stuff like this, especially with if you're going away from
Mhm.
Christianity or like the normal people who are or the
Yeah,
normal.
because the cities force people to do their donations through the churches and the ones they like choose too.
Yes.
Like Huntsville got mad at people because there were people helping the homeless people, and they came out with an official statement, basically just like, stop giving homeless people food, stop helping them. And this was like around Christmas, and it was just like, no, fuck you. Like, what are
Yeah.
you talking about? It's like you need to give all your donations to the churches, and the churches will give it to because the homeless people are getting two of items and stuff. And it's like, good. What
Yeah.
the fuck are you talking about? They
Like,
should.
how is that? But in any
Yeah,
way, how are we
yeah.
even? We don't want them to have 2 cans of beans, but you know, and that's how it is, man. And like anytime, but at the same time, if you get involved in, I've noticed like the same. There's this weird pushing your ideology on people who are in need. I think there's
Oh my
always
God,
this,
yeah.
like, yeah, man. There's like this whole thing, man, and regardless if it's like Christianity or whatever it is, huh?
I experienced that when I was homeless, like where they were basically just like, you have to read the Bible for a little bit and then we'll give you some food. And it's just like, no.
Yeah,
I would be hungry and I would say no. I
yep.
would just be like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm just like walk away.
A few Thanksgivings ago, I was really in a bad way, like literally like no car, no nothing. Had to like walk miles and miles and miles and miles to say to get like a box. And it wasn't even that it was Thanksgiving, by the way. It was just the fact that we didn't have any fucking food. Right.
Right.
So, but they had this Thanksgiving box that was like fucking massive. I had to carry that bitch anyways, man. It was like it was the most terrible. But, and now they have, and it was like, it was almost like, okay, I know you're trying to brainwash me. And like, I'm going to sit here. I did sit there and I went through the whole fucking thing and got my box. But like, man, it wasn't carrying the huge box that I was dropping all the shit all over the place that fucking bothered me. It was the fact that I sit there and I did that for that. Like I'm
Yeah.
like that's what it crushed me. It crushed me, dude. It's like, who am I? Like, where is my integrity? Who am I? What am I doing? Like, how am I doing it? How am I even, I
And then
don't.
you have to walk around with that all the time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't ever really go away.
Does it, man?
Yeah. That's what I never understood about my liberal friends or whatever, which have, like they have like liberal thoughts but conservative actions.
Mm-hmm.
They have all these neuroses about like, random trauma, but it always seems pretty trivial to me. But everybody's suffering, so it's not like I'm not judging them. But then like I'm like, think about poor people, like think about their trauma. They have to carry it around everywhere. Think about the neuroses or the fragmentations of your brain or your personality that you have to create to navigate the world after experiencing really insane stuff, like stuff that just
they just don't know. Yeah, man, you're exactly right. And like, and I think that's where a big divide comes in and trying to like with your middle class liberal people who like they think that you're saying something against them when you're just saying, man, listen, there's absolutely, I can't tell you what a trans person feels like. I can't tell you, what situation is. All I can do is listen to them and do what I think makes them so. Like, why don't we listen to poor people? You know what I'm saying?
yeah
Why
yeah
don't you?
Poor people are not qualified to talk about their experiences because they're failures in the meritocracy.
Absolutely. And on top of that, and like, man,
Even though it's generational, even though you're born into it, even though you can't help who your family is, even though you can't, all this crazy stuff that just happens to you as an individual.
The failures of the education system. They're like, oh, now I'm uneducated and I'm not smart and I don't have any money and I don't look like everybody else and I don't have the money to be. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. But that doesn't mean like when I tell you these things, and it's like you're exactly right, man. And it's like the things that they don't have to value the things that they've always had. They don't realize that they've always had it and they don't see. It's so crazy. And it's not, I don't feel like it's entitlement with a lot of people. With some people, of course, like there's that, but it's just the fact of being in this situation where they just absolutely don't understand what that, not being entitled, but just being ignorant of and not listening and not understanding, always thinking, I don't know.
I think a lot of it is that, people think other people are abstractions, like it's like, poor person is like this far away thing, like this, a single mom with like 6 kids and 3 jobs or something that's like far away. That's an abstraction. That's like a story. That's something on the news. That's something from the media or whatever. It's like hard for people to accept other people's humanity, even if they're saying shit that you don't like. you have to understand that they're stuck inside their confusion.
Yeah, man.
And that's, I don't, when I'm talking about like my middle class liberal friends, I'm not talking about them in a bad way, but like sometimes they're just disconnected, I guess, because everything's good, at least in their personal situation. And we're so atomized, individualized, that if everything's good in my life, this must be an exaggeration. This is some far off abstraction, like poverty. What is that? What is violence?
Yeah.
Somebody hitting you at work. Oh, they're screaming at you. They want you to do more than they pay you for. I mean, that's not, whatever.
Yeah, man.
Oh,
yeah,
you don't
man.
have any benefits. They cut your benefits. I mean, that's not real violence.
Yeah. Yeah. No, man, dude. I think a lot of people, and you hear a lot of people talk about violence, but it's also a fact that they've never experienced violence, and you can see it. And like, that's why, like, I
had a problem with that when I was younger, that like when people would talk about violence, as far as like somebody said the wrong word or something like that being violence, I was like, no, I grew up around violence.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there were knife fights at my family reunions.
Yeah.
Like like my uncle was shot dead in his driveway. That's violence.
Yeah, man.
Like there's violence, and then there's violence. And
Yeah,
now
man.
I'm older and I understand it. I do understand it as violence, removal of choice by force.
Right.
Structures of power and social dynamics, hierarchies, blah, blah, blah. I understand that.
I gotta get this goat off this thing real fast. All right. I got her. She just sometimes she can jump real high.
Goats are kind of like huskies, where they're just like naturally curious and will climb stuff and do whatever.
Yeah, man. I swear, this is like, she's so smart. She's so awesome. I love her so much.
She looks really pretty for a goat, but I don't know much about goats.
Well, I didn't either. I kind of didn't necessarily want her per se, but we ended up with her, kind of like a rescue situation, and couldn't be happier, man. She's rad. Let's see where we go. Art. Yeah. So what all do you do? You do everything, right? But like,
yeah, pretty much. The whole idea is that to help educate people and help people along in their own autodidactic journey of like, the whole self-education thing. I create animation, painting time lapses. I write. What do I do? Music. Yeah, music. Music's the one thing that kind of started the rest of the things. But I always doodled as a kid. But never could afford to paint. I didn't even start painting until I was like 32.
Really?
I'm 35 now. Yeah.
Wow. So that's been like 3 years, dog. And man, that is
2019 is when I bought like a paintbrush and started getting acrylic paint and all that. Up until then, I would just use graffiti markers and large Sharpies and stuff on canvas and just make random stuff. But I never really painted until then.
Do you have any like inspirational artists that have kind of like turned you, or is it just like a?
No, it's like, well, there's some stuff that I like or whatever, but because I'm self-taught, I don't
have a style that's like.
I'm not like, my brain isn't built like that when it comes. There's no formal education in my brain about the painting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the stuff that I like, Toulouse-Lautrec, he's a French painter.
Mm-hmm.
What is it, like from the 1920s and 30s, maybe 1910s? I don't know. That's because I'm also self-taught, so I'm not like educator about that type of thing.
Have you been in conversations with an individual and they'd be like, man, I wish I was self-taught, because I was taught this, now I have these boundaries that I can't go beyond. Have you ever?
Most of the people I know that went to college are my experiences with them is like them trying to explain to me why I'm not an artist because I don't know all the rules and stuff.
What the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
See,
I've even
that is fucked, dude.
well, yeah, it's because I think it's because I maybe provoked that because I talk about class all the time and stuff. They're like, well, they're trying to explain why their formal education actually matters. It's like, well, I know the actual rules to art and da 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 da. And I'm like, there's no rules to communication. There's no rules to making artifacts. I mean, aside from the fact that they function,
I mean,
like
absolutely.
There's no gate there to keep,
No. Zero.
Yeah. It's like, well, if you get really good, maybe you'll go to college and learn how to be a real artist. And it's like, no, that's not. I also hate that shit when people call my stuff folk art,
You don't like that term?
No.
I would consider you a folk artist.
Well, it's dismissive of like, it's dismissive. I also don't like fine art either. but it's because it's like that's the hierarchy or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, you make poor people art, you make signs or you make crafts and stuff that you sell at flea markets. And it's like, well, I do sell stuff at flea markets, but I mean, it's art. That's all it is.
I mean, yeah, man. See, that's the type of thing that also.
I wouldn't call it violent language, but it's classist.
For sure, it is. Yeah. For sure, and like, I for another artist, for anyone of an artist, that I think what they're trying to do is protect their own. Like, okay, no, I did this and I paid this much money to go to this school. So I have got to like protect my space.
The validity of the time spent in that space when like, they could have just maybe spent all that money on supplies and just worked and holed up in a room for a few years and
created their own thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what it is. Some people can't build that kind of like self-learning process or whatever, or apply themselves to the same thing day after day after day. But like working a job all the damn time, 7-8 days a week, it seems pretty fucking simple to wake up in the morning and paint.
Yeah, man.
That's why I do it nonstop, like every morning, 6 a.m., like pretty much all the time. And I've gotten better because of it, because I've treated it like, I'm working for myself and I'm building something,
Yeah, man. I do that with mainly writing. I am interested in doing and messing around with everything, but other stuff, but it's just like kind of like I like doing it. You know what I mean? Right. Like I find
that's a good place to start.
Yeah, man. I think so too, because it feels good. And if I'm going through something, you know what I mean? Like I had a whole bunch of poems and I started fucking around with like Fruity Loops and like beats and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I had all these fun, so kind of like basically just put the poems to beats. And I wouldn't necessarily call it rap or whatever, but it's like made this thing. And I was coming off drugs and shit. And I was getting clean and I was getting sober. And that thing there, that the music that I made, the thing that I made during that time is so absolutely special to me. It means so much to me. Now, granted, it ain't gonna win an Emmy. You know what I'm saying? No. It's hardly even listenable with it. But like to me, what it is it, and then to other people, I think, who can see that in it, I think it's worth something to them to also to know that, a person has put forth the effort to do this thing that they are.
Yeah, I think it's part of capitalism eating our brain that we think everything's supposed to be winning an award or selling a lot or some dumb shit like that. Like we're supposed to explore our own thoughts and our own abstractions through the tools that we have in front of us, and like it doesn't matter. It's not supposed to be consumed by everybody. It's not, everything isn't supposed to be like that.
Well, what I mean is like some of it's so bad that I can't even listen to it.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
You
You ever do
should.
that? You ever
Yeah.
write some stuff, read some stuff, you're just like, oh man, like this means so much to me. But if I'm glad I had that experience. This piece of art represents this time and this
Yeah.
place and it says, but if I don't ever have to, I'm glad to have it there as a trophy for myself on the case that I can look at it and be like, yeah, fuck yeah,
Oh
man.
yeah.
I did that shit and it was great. And it reminds me of, it's like almost a milestone, but like nobody ever has to see that.
I can't revisit it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
have the first record that my band put out when we got signed and we started touring. That whole record, I hated it because me and the engineer. I mean, like, the record just didn't end up sounding like it was supposed to,
mm-hmm.
and then everybody really liked it. And then a lot of the songs when they became really popular, then people would like ask us to play the songs over and over again. And it felt like I was dying every time I played the songs.
Oh my
And
god.
every once in a while, people will hit me up about the band or whatever because I just couldn't tour anymore. I was kind of like an alcoholic, and I just couldn't tour. I hated it. It's really weird to have to like tour, travel around, and do something you don't like because you feel like you're obligated to people or whatever, and you're obligated to like, this means something to them, and it meant something to me at one point or whatever, but it's turned into something else.
Yeah, when it gets manufactured like that, I mean,
Yeah.
dude, Kurt Cobain was 100% right. He saw it. He saw it coming. I mean, you can agree with him or not, but like he knew he sold out. He knew what he had done. He knew the fucking corporation. He knew what he become, and he fucking dude.
He knew there was no way to get off the ride.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
That the rest of his life, it's going to be a byline to this commercial.
They're going to tell you what to do, where to be. You're going to play this song. You're going to be this person. You're going to.
Yeah. Or to me, what would be really messed up is like to have this commercial Leviathan attached to your name for the rest of your life. Like every time someone or anyone thinks about you, they think about this thing. So you can't even have a personal experience of it anymore because it's now owned by the market and projected onto you. And the market is everything, it's like the superstructure. Like,
yeah, man. And can you imagine having like having such a voice that like you would like your own voice? I feel like would be devalued the more people who were like, because you could see it like, okay, like I'm not trying to lead you anywhere. I just want you to be, I'm trying to just create this art, and that's what I'm doing for me. And I want you to be like, you don't have to like.
Yeah, it's like it's like he was yelling in a hole, and then like the crowd developed, and then he kept yelling in the hole, and everybody's like, "This is actually really cool. We all like this now." And then the crowd got so big that people were just like dying around the edges, and then finally he just jumped in the hole.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
There's no way out of it because I mean, to me, all that music, it meant a lot to me as a kid, and it's still good or whatever, but it's owned by everybody, so it means so much to so many different people, and feels useless to me now. But when I was a teenager, Nirvana music was great, but the music seems based on suffering, like most of it. Like
absolutely,
so you can't do that forever. You can't dwell on those feelings forever, which is what I learned. You can't dwell on the pain and the suffering and the rage. It feels good for a little while, but then that just
poison. Yeah, man.
It is.
Yeah, man. And it also the way that it leaks into the things that like, man, then you want to be angry. And there's something about neuroplasticity too. I don't know if you've ever read anything.
You create pathways and it just repeats over and over and over again, and that's the way you develop behavioral patterns and how to identify patterns that you see in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Everything seems appropriate to be addressed with rage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Getting sober and doing like comedy or doing anything artistic, man, there's never been a moment. Have you gone through that?
Yeah, when I quit drinking at the end of 2018, and the first 6 months was bad. It's like I've always had issues like, am I a good person? That type of thing. Am I doing enough? Can I do enough? Is it even possible to do enough to be a good person? Is that some kind of like childhood aspiration that's just not obtainable, that type of thing. And when I got sober, the clarity that hit me over like all the years of where I was just kind of drunk and deep in despair and treating people not very good, you know, or not that I was mean or anything. It was just like I was treating myself like shit, so I couldn't treat anyone around me the right way either, you know.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
I
man.
know, and I know that stressed people out, you know, that cared about me. That was it was tough.
It's a weird thing to be loved and not love yourself.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I don't see. What do you see in me? What is this? What I don't understand. Why do you look at me that way?
Yeah, yeah. I'm fucked up. You got to be fucked up. Like this whole
Yeah,
situation is fucked up. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And like,
I didn't realize it until I got in like till I stopped drinking. But I just sabotaged a lot of relationships. Because I
buddy,
was just
yeah,
because I was just like, yeah, I'm just dumb white trash, whatever. But at the same time, doing all this art and reading and pushing and pushing and pushing, but in personal relationships, I was just like, yeah, I'm not good enough to be in this thing. You know, it was weird.
yeah, man. It
Some
is,
poverty shit, it feels like.
it is some poverty shit, man.
Yeah. It's
Cause
like, oh
like,
yeah, the market doesn't value me right now. So I maybe later on in life, you know, maybe it'll work then, you know, when I
yeah,
can project the security and love that I feel like you deserve, you know.
yeah,
It was,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
The
man.
clarity feeling was it was just awful. Just like everything hitting me every day, just waking up. Cause I mean, that's around the same time I started taking painting really serious too. And just waking up every day, it was like therapy or something, you know.
The painting or waking up was,
Waking up on a schedule and the painting, like the
yeah.
whole process of like, all right, now you're building something for yourself. You're doing something for yourself. It's not
How long do you reckon you stayed in bed and just fucking wallered?
uh not long. That's not
You,
really
no,
my
you
my
you was
my
ready to come up out
depression.
of it.
Yeah, my depression and my anxiety. I mean, whether I feel like shit or not, you know, because I have a heart condition too. Uh, so I'm just used to feeling kind of like shit all the time. And the drinking was making it way worse, and all that shit was making it way worse, and it made depression way worse too. You know,
Yeah.
that's one thing I didn't realize. I was just like, well, I'm depressed, so I drink. It's like, no, you were way more depressed because you drink.
Yeah, because you were drinking the depressant. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. It's like, and I was a bartender at the time too, so it's like it's very normalized. Because I just started working in restaurants after I quit touring in a band, and I was a bartender at the time. It's very normal to drink all the fucking time.
Yeah, man.
Like everybody drinks all the time.
Yeah,
Nobody
man.
thinks it's weird. Nobody thinks anything of it. It's just like after every shift you have a drink. People think something's wrong or you're sick if you don't have a drink.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
They're
and
like, you
it's
okay, man?
yeah, yeah, and it's weird how often like in a situation that you get into where like people, I don't know, like all of a sudden now like where you were alone before, now you're doubly alone, and now you got to figure out all these new ways to cohabitate in these weird social structures, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, and with a drug addiction, like man, I know just having to cut my fucking phone off and like, who do I know that doesn't do drugs? Nobody. You know what I'm saying? And no, I don't know anybody who doesn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, holy fuck.
I honestly haven't even been hanging out with people since I stopped drinking. I know that seems weird because it's that many years ago, but
I mean, it cuts it
what
out, right?
it just I found that most of the people, like a lot of the relationships are based on pleasure principle, and that's not a real relationship, you know. Like if
Yeah,
I'm
man.
just here to accommodate you. Uh,
Yeah.
can we
I,
break 1 second so I can pee?
yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm gonna have to go here. We've got like
Okay.
over an hour. So, man,
Okay.
hell yeah, man. Sorry, Drew couldn't make it, man. Dude, if you want to plug anything, or you want to, I'll
Yeah.
pause.
Yeah.
But
Is it okay to go now?
yeah, but
Okay. Yeah, if you got the money to spare, you can buy Capital Kenosis, 7 years working in the city. It's a poetry chapbook. There's like a couple essays in there, but it's available on Barnes and Noble, Target, Books a Million, and the Evil Empire Target. I mean, not Target, but Amazon.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Right on. And you're on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube. You can look it up under TSAL Collective. You can find me on Twitter, Solomonk256, and Instagram, Church of Self.
Hell yeah, man. We will definitely be fucking with you in the future. I wish Drew was here. He's out in Denver. But yeah, man, next time we're in high school, man, we'll definitely, Charles Way, man, we'll definitely hook up, man, and fucking sit around and bullshit and do more, man. Lots of luck out there, man. Stay safe, buddy.
All right.
Hell yeah.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, man.